Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Production Pulse, Industry Week's bi-weekly live stream to talk about tech events to talk about news events with the manufacturing world. And this is our first Tech Thursday, where we're going to be talking to a few technology leaders about things going on in the industry that should be of interest to the manufacturing world. Joining us today, we have Artem Krupanev from Augury. Sorry about the mangling of that last name. It's an AI provider here in the manufacturing space. And Mike Kinnison from Protolabs, which I think a lot of companies out there know as a leader in prototyping and short-run manufacturing and additive manufacturing, and all sorts of interesting things. Going to be talking to us about some really interesting work they're doing in networking and supplier groups. But we're going to start this conversation today with Artem, and here with us also is Dennis Mecca, who is Industry Week's technology editor. And I'm going to let Dennis kick that off and talk to Artem a little bit about what's going on in AI and manufacturing these days.
So, yeah, AI is all the hype nowadays, right? Chat, GPT, generative content. But what's interesting from our point of view is manufacturing's been using AI, specifically machine learning or deep learning, since the early 2010s. So I thought maybe we could talk to the audience about what the difference is between these newer forms of AI, like Chat GPT, and the sort of AI that manufacturing has been using for decades.
Sure. And Dennis, Robert, thanks for having me. So like you said, AI has been part of manufacturing for some time now. A lot of the times behind the scenes and not very explicit. That's true for the consumer world in some aspects as well. But I think right now we can differentiate between kind of two types of AI technologies. One is AI that can understand signals and things, if you will, and then another one, which is now emergent with GPT, which is AI that can accurately and very well understand language in the context of human conversations. And those two different types of AI have kind of a complementary application for manufacturing in the future. We're still not seeing that implementation. But if you think about narrow AI that can understand things and signals, so you can think about machine health or predictive maintenance, like identify machine malfunctions accurately, predict them, prescribe courses of action. So while that's very effective and very powerful, that doesn't change fundamentally some of the workflows that people have on the production floor. When we think about AI that can understand conversations, now we have something that can really take the business context, the market context, the context of safety and the way people operate on the production floor, and tie that together with these more narrow AI applications that can understand signals. And all of a sudden, you have the potential of creating something like an expert that has knowledge across a very wide range of applications, right? So imagine you have 100 engineers looking at every machine, at every production process, at every part of your supply chain, while at the same time, those experts can understand the business context, the consumer context, the different decisions that your company is making almost in real time, and tie them together. Now, that sounds a little bit like magic, but this is where we kind of are moving towards in terms of the enterprise architecture, if you will, of AI. And that will unlock a tremendous amount of productivity, right? So we're in the early stages of marrying those types of AI together, but that will unlock a lot of productivity. And the other piece, I think, that where there's a key difference, as I mentioned, narrow kind of AI is more behind the scenes, where just a few experts understand the inner workings of how it actually works. When we think about generative AI with language, we actually can have an interface where operators or people on the production floor are speaking with a system that can understand the language, right? And so we will have an adjustment to the interfaces where you move from something that's more regimented and kind of mechanical and very technical to something that's a lot more akin to the way we're speaking right now. So that is the process of generative AI as well.
So, sorry, Artem, you brought up something that I was going to actually address with Mike, and so let me just kind of switch people here for a moment. There are some design for manufacturing tools and some of the systems that Protolabs is using. I've also seen some really interesting things like ChatGPT inserts for Autodesk and things like that. So we're actually seeing some really interesting uses of generative AI in that kind of design process. So, how do you see this current discussion around chatbots and generative AI, and how do you think that's going to affect things like is also manufacturing and some of the work that the Protolabs has really been involved in over the years?
Right. Well, first, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. It's great. We want to talk about this stuff. It's exciting stuff. And you're right. From a DFM perspective, we have it in our hubs network for DFM. We also have it in our legacy systems. This adopting these tools are just going to make us smarter. They're going to make us better serve our customers, better manufacturing partners. As the world's first digital manufacturer, we've been a leader in this space, and we're excited about these tools. We're looking at these and identifying how we can utilize these. And you're right, it's a lot in the DFM space, the customer chatbot space, and those type of things. So we don't know where all this is going to go, but it's great that we can look at this, adopt it, and try to use it to our advantage as much as we can. So I'm really personally excited about it.
That's great. Dennis, why don't you take it over again?
So I guess this could go to either of you then. We talked about a lot of AI historically has taken place in the background, thinking about plants specifically, but now we're going to see it spread. What are managers, operators really going to need, if anything, to understand about AI as it spreads? Historically, it's been in the background. As it comes to the fore, are we going to need to expect operators to understand more about AI?
So I think we need to understand that the challenges for the industry, especially here in the U.S., are very well known, right? We have if you think about we have reshoring, nearshoring stimulus, to boost up the industry, and that's very exciting. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity, but still, when we think about wages are still 2 to 3 times what they are in some places elsewhere. And also there's a massive gap in skilled labor, right? And kind of knowledge and know-how, which is very difficult to close, right? So how do we close that, right? How do we make sure here in the West and the US, manufacturing remains competitive? We need to increase the productivity per person, right? Per worker, 2 to 5 times. How does that work, right? And part of it is obviously learning new skills, learning new capabilities that can be scary, right? Understanding technology. Does everyone need to become an engineer or not to be able to adapt these? And I think my answer to that is no, right? The level of accessibility and access to those capabilities that AI can provide today, the threshold is much, much lower, right? When we mentioned natural language, we mentioned, the ability to have insight and knowledge that's kind of coming to the fingertips of operators without dramatically changing the way people work, the workflows, but people do become a lot more productive. And I think the key word there is not becoming more knowledgeable at understanding the way AI works, but understanding how you can increase your level of judgment and skilled decision making by using the information that it provides or the insights that it provides. That's a slightly different mindset. So in some ways, I think that we need to understand that there will be a progression, a level progression for almost every function, every job on the production floor and then production or manufacturing management, moving towards higher order levels of judgment, meaning becoming more strategic regarding what you're thinking about, becoming closer to the business goals and objectives, closer to the end customers and the demand, and having a wider understanding of the implications of your decisions, right? So that is the possibility for what we have that AI brings to the production floor.
How complicated?
I'm sorry. Mike, anything you wanted to add there about just you?
Yeah, I would say what really resonated with me is the productivity piece of it and the accuracy and improving the service level that we're going to have for our customers when we have better data, better information, and we are able to better predict the outcomes. So those are the areas that are really important and resonate with us.
Great. Sorry, Dennis, take it over again.
When you hear about AI, especially generative AI, a lot of it's what I call on the back end, right? It's customer service, it's sales, it's business. So that's why I'm always thinking about what's going to happen on the factory floor, the operators, kind of the practical side of it. Artem, you mentioned that the kind of complexity of AI and the higher levels of decision making that AI might assist with, that'll continue to increase. What does that look like on the floor? What kind of decisions might we expect AI to be making or recommending? Just how smart will it get in terms of practical production? I don't know if that's a fair question.
I think that's a very fair question. I'll just give a quick analogy to software engineering. Now, it's not a completely exact analogy, right? But what we can have seen over the last 30 years, software engineering move from this waterfall way of working, very linear way of working, regimented, where just a few experts knew how to do exactly the thing, and then it would work in a very serial way, to a lot more people kind of having democratized knowledge on how to develop software come into it. And we've developed a lot of different tools that enabled the people who are actually making the product or working on creating the software to understand what the actual customer needs are, and work in iterations, not on just how they develop the thing, but also what needs to be developed, what the customer needs, right? So we will see with this sort of democratization of insights regarding how the machines are operating, how your production outcomes are going to look like, what the process looks like, what parts of the supply chain look like, right? Get closer and closer to the business objectives and goals, and put more power into the hands of people on the production floor, right? Do I stop production now because we have a clear maintenance issue that can affect our supply chain? You can have that insight within the shift, right? Do I change this part, or do I adjust the temperature on this dial, right? And you will be able to do that at the operator level while knowing the implications on not just the production process within the shift, but also on the whole network of production, right? Is it better for me to produce this product here or there, right? So I think the combination of kind of AI insights for, let's say, machine health or process health that a company like Augury provides, with the generative AI and understanding of the wider implications on the business, on the network, on the customer, is going to, I think, have an impact on how people on the production floor actually make decisions.
What do you think, Mike? Is there any particular angles for AI on the floor where additive is concerned? That's a very, kind of, for like a tech-heavy industry to begin with, right? So the
Right.
more potential for AI in additive kind of on the floor, practical production?
Absolutely. And I think it resonates across all the different services, right? When you're talking about getting better requirements from the customer, you can feed that into the appropriate manufacturing processes. If there's a design element to the process, a mold design or something like that, it feeds into better designs. On the additive side of the world, there is a lot of science that's associated with, how you orient the part, or the different settings on the machines. And the more information you can have up front, the better you can tie that to the requirements, the more your success you're going to have at the end. So absolutely, it all ties together. And like I said, these are great opportunities that we're looking forward to
Do
seeing
you
how
think
this
AI will
evolves.
ever play a part in new materials creation? Just thinking with all the testing involved, the whether we see more simulation that'll speed up the creation, the testing of new materials.
Yeah, I'm not a materials expert, and we don't specialize in materials like that. But I don't see why it wouldn't, and especially when it helps guide people to what materials and what material properties they might want in their design. I think there's a lot of opportunity for help there.
Interesting.
Great.
Mm.
Let's actually, Mike, let's stay with you for a minute here. Let's talk a little bit about the Hubs product that Protolabs is invested in and is offering. There have been a lot of attempts at these sort of networks of small and mid-sized suppliers using online marketplaces to collect specs and kind of hand out parts. What makes Hubs different? And
Yep.
could you tell us a little bit about that program?
Yeah. Obviously, there's been many attempts, and obviously, networks of suppliers have been around for a very long time, right? I think the Hubs network is especially important in today's e-com environment of connecting the orders with a manufacturer. Now, here's a little bit about how we utilize it, or how our Hubs network is different. First, as a manufacturing partner, they're very complementary to what we do in our digital factories. If you think about it, very generalization right here, but 80-20 rule, our factories have been optimized to process at speed up to same day or next day single parts, multiple parts, in many cases, low volume batches. We've been optimized for that 80%, but there's that 20% yet. And so for us, being able to partner with the network to service our customers who are asking for, hey, I need help with the entire design, we're able to bring that to the network, and they're able to do these things that we haven't optimized or set up a factory to do. And in often cases, they're looking for it in speed. They're trying to get to the market quickly with their product designs. I think there's another element that's different about our hubs network, is that we're really looking at these as manufacturing partners, where we have a network of approximately 200 right now, and they're going through rigorous quality control. We're bringing them on board as good quality suppliers, and so when we go to the market, we're bringing this to the 5 or 6 people who are kind of specialists or have this expertise.
Right. And I guess when I think about anytime you put any kind of marketplace online, you start talking about squeezing margins. I mean, that's what we saw in the automotive industry, certainly as people got more information about the actual production costs or the sticker prices versus the invoice prices. The big result over a few-year period was a shrinking of margins there. Is that a concern when you start talking about small batch producers that have generally small batch, low volume, high complexity manufacturers have generally relied on a high price premium to make that work? Is there any threat to that when you start talking about kind of networking these things together?
Well, let's start with on our network here. We consider them manufacturing partners and an extension of our business, right? I think one of the keys here is on that complementary piece with the 80/20. They're completing stuff that we are unable to do, and it happens to be their specialty. If they could do this in a day, we would be all over that, because that's what we want for the manufacturing partners. So they could still have an opportunity to get into that area. The benefit to these the network partners here is it's global in nature, right? So you can have an injector molder in Iowa who's connecting with a customer in Boston or something like that they would have never had that opportunity to do before. And with the tens of thousands of customers that we deal with every year, we're able to connect those dots for them, and they're able to get that order, which is largely incremental. They're able to get that order with little selling costs up front. So we see it as a complementary thing to our digital factory, and to us, it's really important that they are manufacturing partners.
That's great. Dennis, do you have a couple more questions for Artem over there on the AI side?
It almost seems trite to ask, but it always comes up. Are there any jobs that AI will never be able to replace humans on? Is there any specific niches in manufacturers? AI is never doing this. We're always going to need a flesh and blood human operator to do this.
I think we need to kind of mention this, where we need to think about not think about jobs, but we should think about functions. We should think about aspects of what people do, right? I think it's a very, very important difference. And job or job description doesn't equal the actual thing that we do, or the kinds of strengths that we exercise, as human beings. Right, and so I think there is kind of 2 dimensions to this. One is knowledge, and the other one is what I would call judgment. Right, AI, and with generative AI, especially, we're moving higher and higher on that vertical of knowledge, right? So today, if you think about the Gen AI applications that we have, they're quite knowledgeable. They've read all the books, right? And then if we tie in real-time signals and insights from these more narrow AI applications, then we now have a system that can actually understand things better in real time than most of our experts in terms of knowledge. But it doesn't have nearly the same level of judgment than a human person would. And we need to start training and thinking about our roles in terms of how do we expand that area of judgment more and more. That's some of it is a natural evolution, right? Once we have kind of more knowledge at their hands, more insight at their hands, then we say, okay, we can make better decisions. Let's become more creative. Let's maybe change the way we work in certain ways. I think that happens. That's part of our nature as human beings. But you will see, I think, across every role, people become more sophisticated in terms of what types of decisions do they make, how do they make them in more creative ways, and how do they utilize the knowledge that's at their fingertips. That today is a cognitive bias, right? We don't have the information. Well, what if you do have the information and actually make better and better decisions? The other thing I'll mention around that, we need to think about this as an evolution of kind of levels of autonomy. Think about autonomous driving, right? You drive the car and sometimes you're hands off, sometimes it brakes by itself, and then at some point it becomes smarter and gets on the highway by itself, and you can trust it on the highway but not on the street, right? We need to think about what areas of, let's say, the production process, the workflow, the manufacturing process, and it's very specific to the type of kind of industry you're in, which parts are going to be more like driving in the highway, right? And which parts are going to be more like driving in the streets or parking, or and this is where that evolution comes in, where higher and higher levels of autonomy means we're solving harder and harder, more complex problems that require more and more knowledge and more judgment. But as we do that, the people who are solving those problems will move on to more complex problems as we go. So I'm not afraid for, we have a tremendous gap in labor and skills. So I'm not afraid for jobs per se. I think we need to change our mindset and think about skills and think about how do we increase the ability of people to become more creative as a result of these tools.
It's almost like at the cognitive level, what happens when you have, say, robots taking over basic, hands-on production tasks, which then frees human laborers to, handle more delicate, more specialized tasks, or just like with data analysis, rather than tallying information in analog, putting into Excel. That information can be provided to decision makers quickly. So now they're not focusing on crunching the data, but what to do with the data. So that kind of same thing, but on the floor.
I think that's a perfect analogy. I think that autonomy to the thinking process and to the knowledge process is the same as automation to the manual process, right? And so that's where that's going.
Interesting.
Great. Thank you so much for those thoughts, Artem. Mike, any final thoughts today, just about what you're seeing in manufacturing and how Protolabs kind of sees the market these days?
It's exciting times. It's always changing. You have to remain flexible and agile and keep looking for these new opportunities and these different tools. I agree completely. There's the skill gaps that we're going to have in the future here, and excited to see what's in front of us.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Mike Kennison from Protolabs, and Artem Krupanev from Augury AI, and Dennis from here at IndustryWeek. Appreciate the conversation today, and it's very much an exciting time in manufacturing. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.